Hello, good evening, everybody. Jonny Torres, this is The Yard Sign. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very blessed, as they would say, and fortunate to be able to be coming to you live from Tampa Bay, Florida, post-Hurricane Ian. And so that, of course, is going to be the core topic of today's show. We want to appreciate all of our friends, family members around the country, around the state, who reached out and not only kept tabs on us, but also ensured that we were in a position to weather this hurricane. And now, of course, our thoughts, our efforts, and our prayers have shifted to Southwest Florida. And we'll certainly talk about what's going on down there as Hurricane Ian made landfall Wednesday evening, and has truly devastated that area, and I can't even wrap my head around the extent of the damage that it would have caused had it come through Tampa Bay. And so again, we're incredibly blessed to be able to have the opportunity to be coming to you live from Tampa, and give you our perspective, especially for those of you who may be listening, watching from other parts of the country, other parts of the world. Thank you. And speaking of which, don't forget that you can catch the show live on Facebook and YouTube, in addition to previous episodes, along with the audio version of our podcast, which you can find on your favorite podcast platforms, or as I like to say, over at the tech overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Samsung podcast platforms, and more. Got an exciting show for you today and a new face joining us at the big table. And so let's not waste any more time and get into today's topics. Hurricane fallout, as I mentioned, Governor DeSantis, taking on the big show, as every Florida, I think, governor is destined to at least deal with one major hurricane during their tenure. And Democrats getting racist, and Florida's right at the center of it. We'll talk about why that's happening. Joining us at the big table is a new face to some of you, but to us, she's a friend, fellow marketer and genius marketer, I might say, and also very opinionated when it comes to our politics, and hence why I've invited her to come on the show. Elisabeth Flach, how are you doing, young lady?
Fantastic. How are you?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And then over on the far right, as always, is the far right, Anibal David Cabrera. Welcome back, sir.
I'm doing good. I took a little bit of break.
I know. I see the hurricane got some of your hair.
You would be surprised.
Was it kind of like one of those things where you were just bored and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna have somebody cut my hair?
Well, I had a midlife crisis, and I thought, why not just dye the hair instead of going to
what?
therapy? Black.
Oh, okay, got it. So from brown to black.
I don't think I have brown hair.
No.
You know my hair color.
Of course.
Written down in your phone in the notes?
Yes.
It's important.
Of course.
He has a lock of my hair.
I have all his measurements, all his shoe
You have a walk-up
size.
song?
What?
You have a walk-up song?
Lock of my hair.
Oh, I thought you said walk-up song. I was like, let's
Can you
talk about it.
imagine? That's amazing.
No, I feel like the
yeah,
world
move a
is
little
my-
closer in on the microphone there. There we go.
I think it would be like something like from like Gloria Estefan, like mid 80s would be my walk-up song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Come on, baby, let's.
Wow, look at you guys.
Don't mind us over here just having a
We've been
moment.
doing this for a while.
Yeah. We're a vibe.
All right,
Okay, Jonny, let's get
excited to have you guys on. Excited to also talk about really all the angles, to this story when it comes to what's happened really in this, what seems like weeks, but really it's only been a week since we were last here.
Honestly, I thought it's been like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh. It felt like it. It felt like the lockdown all over again. I think there's certainly people who I'm sure were having like lockdown PTSD.
It was the longest week ever.
It's been bad.
It was like all a blur.
I bet.
Yeah.
So who was in your house? Or was it just like the family, or like did in-laws come in, or what happened?
Okay, so my children, I'm not married to their father anymore, so we divide time. So they were actually with their dad, my younger ones. But my neighbors, like my 2 girlfriends and like one of their husbands and their kids, they were all home. So we all just kind of like went back and forth to everyone's house. We like tag team the food. We tag team the vodka.
Yes.
Because that's
Nice.
important.
It's important.
Water.
So true Floridian fashion, you had the hurricane party.
100%. Should I tell you how it went down? Because it was super epic.
Northerners don't believe that we have parties during hurricanes.
Well, there's nothing
what
else
is
to do.
Exactly.
And you're totally stressed out because you don't know what's going to happen. I was trying to explain to my company because they're out of New York, and I'm like, it's like PTSD because You're standing there waiting, you're preparing. So you do all this work, you're exhausted, and then you just sit and wait. And you watch the news and you watch the radar and you're like, where's it going to go?
It's a guessing game. It
is.
truly is a
And
guessing
then
game.
it rained all day. So it was so depressing.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, that's it. It's time to start drinking and do karaoke. Like, I can't do this
Like
anymore.
I said this before, it's not the cone of uncertainty, it's the cone of anxiety.
100%.
You have no idea where it's going.
Right.
And this is a good example for Northerners
Yeah.
and Northern media people that don't understand that we don't know what's going on.
No.
Hence why everyone has to be prepared to like just stick it out for a few days if they have to.
Well, and as lucky as we've been here in Tampa Bay, we're also in that weird paradox where if you do decide to evacuate, the problem is in which direction.
Right.
Because you're
Because
screwed
everyone
if you
at
go
West goes
south.
to like Orlando, and then it
Every
goes
time.
over to Orlando. Right.
Well, right. You're screwed if you go south, and
Yeah.
you're screwed if you go north.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I have family in Jacksonville, and then I have family in Miami. So those are my two first. Like, all right, those are the default kind of destinations.
But those are the extremes of both sides.
And they've
of
gotten
the
hit
state.
both times. They got hit with Irma, and they got hit now with Ian.
Well, remember, like, what Irma went up into like Orlando, but then it like went up into Georgia, right?
Right,
Okay,
yep.
so like everybody mass exodus to Georgia into the mountains, and it hit. And so everyone was like stuck in traffic, trying to find gas, and then no one could get back, and it was just a cluster.
I think
so.
Yeah.
I think people just don't remember. Like, so when this first started, the first evacuations were like in like the weekend. Honestly, I think Sundays.
Here in Pinellas, yeah.
Yeah, Pinellas and Hillsborough County.
Yeah, it was like Monday,
Zone A and
Sunday,
Zone
Monday.
B got released, and it's because that track was not moving. It wasn't wobbling as much, and like
Right.
really, you can't even make that decision. I understand why you do it because it's the first thing that looks like it's going to get hit, so that you start doing that. No one
And it was coming, too.
Yeah,
It was
no one
booking it.
south of Sarasota thought they were going to get hit this side.
No.
Right, no one
Mm-hmm.
at all, which is what frustrates me because and I think we're kind of, this is kind of our first topic, correct?
Yeah.
That they're talking to the governor, and the governor's like, well, why didn't the reporter was like, why didn't you guys evacuate sooner? And the governor's like, well, where were you like 24 hours before the storm hit? You were in Tampa because you thought it was going to hit Tampa.
Yeah,
like, that's
I thought that was the perfect retort because even famously, Jim Cantori. Where was Jim Cantori? He was in Clearwater.
Right.
And he was in Clearwater, I mean, pretty much up until landfall.
correct.
Right.
And so it goes to show you that even the great Jim Cantori can be wrong sometimes.
Oh, look at that.
But nobody, I think there was maybe one model that had it coming in that far south, and it's not one of the regular ones.
I've
It's
been
not
watching
one
like
of the
the wind
dependable
patterns, like for many days. So I have the Windy app, and I
Yeah.
was watching like northern and southern. I was like,
Love the Windy
okay.
app.
I'm like, it's gonna go. I was like, you know what? It's not gonna hit Tampa. I thought just by the way the wind pattern was going originally that it was gonna go up, like to Mississippi. I was like,
Yeah.
I had it like at Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And then I was like way off because I did not anticipate the like hard right.
Well, that cold,
The
that
wind,
cold
and
front.
that's what
Cold
happened. It was
front,
like
yeah. Oh, man.
late Monday, Tuesday. The pattern was coming like this, like from
Right.
the northeast, and it was like pushing it this way. So I was convinced, and then all of a sudden it kind of shifted, and I was like, oh,
But that was the new thing for this particular hurricane,
Right.
because even when Irma came through, and, the weather's always beautiful right after,
But not this time.
but this time, well, no, the weather was I mean, by
It was clear
by
skies, but it was
Thursday
still cold.
But that was the thing. All of a sudden,
was
it's
cold.
like 60, 70 degrees
which
outside.
is
It's like, what is
30
going
degrees,
on?
30-degree drop for us.
I was like, I don't have
Especially this time of year, it's like, wait a second.
I don't have power, but it feels really good outside. So
Yeah, I
leave
can open the windows.
open.
Right.
Because normally you're like,
doesn't
oh
make
my
any sense.
gosh, I'm gonna die of humidity.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna mold.
We normally can't do that for like a month and a half.
Oh, man, a month and a half.
it's not till like
3 days.
Yeah, it's not. Well, no, I mean in terms of like we normally can't do that till like late November.
Right.
Girl,
sometimes even December.
I broke out my pashmina the moment I felt into the 65. I was like, what is
my
this?
My girlfriends and I walk in the morning at like 5:30, 6 a.m. So I walked outside and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I'm like, I had to go upstairs and get like my lined pullover. I'm like, you live in Florida. It's like 68.
It's
You're
somewhere.
like, it's so cold.
I know. I had to walk the dog, and I'm like, man, should I have brought a sweater?
No,
it's
we're
like-
not used to this kind of stuff. This is like luxury weather.
And
for us.
I did have the socks and the Crocs, so I was okay there.
That's because you have no fashion statement. So,
Well, Just walking the dog.
At the end of you're still out in public. At the end of the day, we are joking about this and we're having fun about this, but a lot of damage occurred south of Sarasota, Venice, Fort Myers, Punta Gorda basically got hit again, which is such a bummer in their situation. And again,
well, very reminiscent of Andrew, and even more so because some of these islands, Anibal being kind of the focal point now, given what we know, could be gone as an island. It could be uninhabitable as an island. There's not much actual land there left from the aerial shots that I've seen so far. People are stranded on that island because the bridges fell to get there. They're being airlifted out. But fortunately, not to kind of pound our chest, but for example, what do they call it, the World Kitchen, or the thing that Chef Jose Andres does when he comes and brings like chefs and foods to major
I saw them setting up like all the tents and like, the food.
So they partnered with Metropolitan Ministries here in Tampa, and they're actually flying food from Tampa into Southwest Florida through helicopters, which I thought was really, really smart. Rather than trying to set up camp there, here you've got everything you need, and it's maybe 20 minutes in a helicopter, 15 minutes.
The only positive about this situation is that because people thought it was going to hit Pinellas County, North Pinellas County, that they kind of based in Tampa. They based all their equipment, they based all the linemen, they based all the water. I mean, we had tons of supplies ready to feed the 3 million people that if things went bad. I mean, it was going in the trajectory, because that's the worst case scenario. It's North Pinellas County getting directly hit with a 4 or 5, which floods the bay and turns Pinellas County into 2 islands. And so that's what was supposed to happen if it would have stayed in the trajectory there was. So they prepared for here. And so we kind of had the resources already that we could send down south, which is one of the few things that we were able to get down. It's not like it's hitting on a remote part of the state or a different state completely. It was close enough that we are able to send help. And a lot of Tampanians and a lot of people in Hillsborough and Pinellas in this region are taking the necessary resources and sending them south, and that's the point.
But to show you how unpredictable these things are, even Tampa General Hospital, they moved their helicopter, their ambulances.
Oh yeah, you saw the wall that they kind of built up.
Well, they moved them to Orlando. They moved them to the Orange County Convention Center, which I'm sure is a very safe facility. But again, like, that's the trajectory of the storm. It's like, why would you move them to Orlando? But again, I mean, really, what options do you have? You can only plan for so many variables. The cool thing again is again that us being so close to where the devastation happened, we already had the resources. We had those linemen already kind of ready to go. There were vehicles that were moved out of that area, some already in that direction because they thought it was going to hit here. And really, I mean, I think it's fortunately the major structural damage in terms of like I-75 and stuff like that we've seen is something that's going to need to be addressed, with the Mayaca River overflowing, shutting down I-75, which has been a big problem. But again, fortunately, you also have got resources coming up from South Florida, Miami and Dade and Fort Lauderdale in that area. So, I mean, again, it's very reminiscent of Andrew. I mean, there's not a whole lot left. And it's very easy to be fooled by the aerial shots because you may see roofs, right? And I'm speaking from, again, having lived through Andrew in Miami, and you see rooftops, and you're like, okay, well, that doesn't look too bad. Well, no, those homes are destroyed on the inside. They just got lucky that there's still some sort of a physical semblance there. But I mean, a lot of the restaurants, a lot of the retail, a lot of that stuff that technically isn't built into the same construction code as homes are, gone. Just completely wiped out.
There's the image of like the before and after right along the water there, and you just see, I mean, just gone. The buildings are completely gone. Washed away.
Well, the coastline too. I mean, the aerial drone footage that we've seen coming again has completely changed that area because of, I mean, how powerful. I mean, if think about it, if it could drain Tampa Bay dry, given as far as it was, which is what, 90 minutes away. I mean, the
about 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, the force. I mean, Irma came a lot closer.
Yes.
Because that actually hit through like Sarasota, Manatee County, and same thing happened. This one was twice as far, and drained us just as badly.
I mean, I was looking at the videos of people just continually walking through
Yeah.
the bay, and in my mind, I'm like, eventually that's coming back. You guys should not be there,
Right, because you don't know when it's going to come back.
Exactly.
Right. And like, could you imagine trying to get out along that seawall with all the crustaceans and just, I mean,
All the beads from all the years.
You know what's funny is I was thinking that as like Jane Castor's out there and people are out there walking on the bay on the bed of the bay and all that. I'm like, maybe we should get a cleanup crew while we're down there,
Exactly.
and get some of those scooters out of there and some of those bikes.
That's some
and
nice 1990 like memorabilia.
It's bad. I mean, yeah, because there were definitely like some bikes and scooters and stuff down there. But I even saw a guy who was on Bayshore and literally physically take his bike down and ride it on the bed of the bay of the Hillsborough River.
Tampanians are so.
I just would never. I just would never.
I'm not
No.
gonna say never because I have personally never done it.
I mean, if there
I
was
the
like
driver?
a bet
I'd
and it
walk
was
down
worthy of like there was a lot of money on the table, I might.
I'd walk
right?
down
Like
there.
I needed to give me some motivation here. But just because I'm like, nah, I'm good.
So I've been there when it's drained, and I've been there when it's over flooded. And I'll tell you, even though there's more damage when it over floods, the activities that you can do on Bayshore Boulevard are a lot more extent when it's completely flooded.
Yeah.
With 2 or 3 feet up in the air, and like you can do a jet ski. Like that feasibly can happen.
I was
on
just gonna say,
Bayshore.
just get your kayak and just like.
I don't do that much exercise. It's gonna be a jet ski.
Okay.
Now I'll tell you what is unfortunate is watching now, because of course predictably this is just what happens, is Democrats especially today have really started to politicize the response. Now even as early as yesterday there were media outlets that were questioning a lot of the decision making that came up to the evacuation of Lee County and Collier County and those surrounding counties. And again, it's one of those things that unless you're here, you don't quite understand it.
Right.
And even, again, everyone in Lee County has said, hey, the governor did what he was supposed to do. We told people that, they had the choice to evacuate because, again, they didn't know it was going to come at them like that.
Right.
And so... but they were equally prepared. I mean, they were out there and they had gotten supplies and things like that. But again, no one was expecting it to just break that hard right and cut through the state where it did. Now, so far, and I think, to the governor's credit, has been that the response has been unbelievable. Right. I mean, to see thousands, I think the number is somewhere close to 50,000 linemen from various power companies, like ready to go. I mean, it looked like we were preparing for war.
Correct.
When seeing these line up at the Florida State Fairgrounds, seeing them at the Strawberry Fairgrounds, I mean, it's impressive. And it also excited me from the sense that, this is what we're good at. This is where America shines, because this is where we show, really what we've built all these years.
Yeah, within the
We're
Tampa,
unified.
within the Tampa Bay area. So I think there was almost 1 million people without a power at one time, and it just takes time to get that stuff up and running.
Well, and they're saying, that they're way ahead of schedule in terms of getting power restored, and that really almost everybody could have their power back in most areas. I think, by the end of this week,
Right.
which is incredible.
less than 7 days. It's absolutely
Yeah.
I think the number I saw was like 746,000 people are out of power.
Yeah.
Like, in that.
still.
Well, and to
still
that
in the
note, I
state.
mean, that part of the state, again, very old, a lot of very old infrastructure. And so one of the things that they have to be looking at is, okay, let's go underground with our utilities, which is overdue.
Yeah, I think in the state of Florida, there's a lot of places.
And you
that
have to,
overdue.
you're rebuilding anyways,
Right.
because even what is still standing is probably not usable. It's not inhabitable. And so at this point, you might as well rebuild with the proper infrastructure. And then what's crazy is because of what we've now experienced so many times here in Florida, you have those massive steel pipes that hold all of our streetlights,
Right.
which seem like overkill. But what's funny is that those things stay standing, but then the streetlights themselves fall apart,
Right.
or get destroyed.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like now it's like you got to build those things, the streetlights, out of whatever they built the thing that holds it.
I do wonder sometimes how antiquated how are we still here? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like I grew up in Lutz and we have there's neighborhoods with wooden poles.
Wooden poles.
Yeah.
And
Or
a good
string.
gust of wind comes by and you're
just a
like,
string.
there goes the power source,
Yeah.
you know?
Or
Like,
just a cable holding a street light.
yeah, well, I'm like, how are we
Well,
still here?
there's an intersection in Town and Country that the pole has fallen onto another pole. Instead of erecting it, they just attached a wood to the other one so it's stabilized. And I'm like,
Oh my
really?
God.
Really? Did someone from the power system do it? Or they're like Juan from across the street? doing it?
Right.
Just give me an answer.
He was a subcontractor.
That's all I just want to know.
Hey, man, they'll get it done. Like you say, immigrants
Oh
will get
my
it done.
gosh.
He's an approved vendor.
Yeah.
It's fine.
For the Biden
It's
administration.
fine.
Yeah. But what's been again incredible is been the response
Right.
that the state has not only officially through the governor's office and state resources and all that, but even the public.
Right.
And it's always just again it's so fulfilling to see people step up and donate whatever materials they had. I mean, you have restaurants, you have individuals donating all of their hurricane supplies and now saying, hey, here, take all this stuff because we know you guys need it.
And that's what's happening now. So what's occurring, and I can say this for the Tampa Bay region because I've seen a lot of churches organize. So this past Sunday was, of course, the first Sunday after the hurricane. And I saw many churches telling people to bring your extra supplies in, bring your water bottles, bring your food, bring everything. So then we could figure out where to send that. Because some churches were, again, the whole area communities were devastated. And the point of the government is to restore power and to get people out of their homes and make sure they're fine. But what stays is those community centers of those churches and everything else and those communities that need to be rebuilt if they're going to be rebuilt. I mean, that's a conversation that we have every single time there's a hurricane. And at the end of the day, the decision is made to rebuild in certain parts. And so a lot of churches did that. I know that my particular church, Bay Hope United, sent stuff down to Grace United in Fort Myers. We were blessed to be able to organize with a bunch of nonprofits and actually take an entire semi of nothing but water. About 25,000 bottles of water were sent today. And that was just coordinating with a 3-day notice, Johnny?
Yeah.
It took us about that just to get everything in
I'd
order.
say, about less than 2 days.
Less than 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we found someone was willing to donate. We were able to connect that with organizing transportation because that's what's happening now. The most difficult part that we're finding is not finding water, finding food, getting people to donate. It's getting the donations to Fort Myers, and that's becoming the problem. So if you and so I've gotten to know a lot of brokers when it comes to transportation, and we were able to get a deal and everything else. But some people are starting to increase their prices when it comes to transportation. And I will say right now, the governor and the AG will not stand for price gouging when it comes to transporting vital goods and services. So let's be chill about it. I get paying a little bit more, but some of these prices that people were quoting me were absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and even if you want to volunteer or find yourself in a position where you feel like you can aggregate a lot of supplies and things like that, try to team up with maybe somebody that's already down there. Don't just go down there blindly because, again, much of the infrastructure is non-existent. There's a lot of logistical things that you need to be aware of, and it's not helpful to just kind of show up because sometimes you create more chaos than you are helping.
And that's what's happening now. So like for us, we were connected with the governor's office and they're giving out QR codes. Like you have to have this on your vehicle to say that you're able to get into the distribution centers because there are a lot of people wanting to help. There are a lot of people that just want the clickbait. And I think that's what's starting to be felt.
Yeah, you'll always have the opportunists.
Yes.
Right.
And so, they've got, I believe, National Guard at the gas stations that do have gas, trying to direct traffic. They're, of course, being very vigilant about price gouging. And I actually sent a producer a link that I hope she can pull up. But for the people who want to, whether it be donate or actually take part in the recovery efforts, again, funny enough, there was some Democrats trying to criticize the First Lady because of a website, the website that she oversees, I guess, was not coming up, or it was slow, or it was and people were saying that it was acting weird and this and that. And it's like, well, yeah, we're in the middle of a catastrophe. And so the website's probably overloaded.
Yeah.
It's probably overwhelmed. And and they were trying to imply that it somehow wasn't legitimate, or, as to maybe where the money was going and where the information was going, all these like horrible things. When again, this is sanctioned by and managed by the state. And again, it's they just have wasted no time in starting to throw political punches. They're trying to say that Arcadia, which is a dominant minority dominant community down in Southwest Florida, was not getting resources. Was not true. Mm-hmm. In fact, they were among the first to get gas in that area. They have resources to get food, to get other supplies, and now they're trying to say that because the governor has been down there in all these different parts that have been affected, that he's holding up progress as to the recovery efforts, and that because he's there, and it's famously kind of, because in some situations it's true. Like if you have a high-ranking official come in, like the president didn't want to go to the World Trade Center shortly after 9/11 because, again, security and all that kind of stuff, it would have created more chaos than it would have helped. Again, there's a time and a place, but I can assure you that there's probably 24 people that are involved in making the decision as to where and when he can show up without disturbing the process that's in place.
Correct.
Do we have the website? Oh, I thought here, I'll send it to you again. Let me see.
I just want to say that I love our governor. I think he's my favorite human ever. And I love that. I mean, I'm just going to say, because I don't know. I love that he's protected our state. I love that he had a plan in place. I mean, you look at, and not to diminish, Katrina, but they were not prepared, and their response was not good for the community, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, even the federal response was terrible. So at the end of the day, it just goes to show you from a leadership perspective, his level of leadership. And, the Dems are always gunning for him, right? I mean, he's setting a precedent in a bar. And so anything they can do to tear him down, I think that's just what they try to do all the time.
And I would have wished there would have been more time for them not to do this, because at the moment, it's been less than a week. And we are still, they're still finding bodies in homes. And the reason why we have I didn't realize this until I was told about this today. The reason why they're asking for these kind of 5-gallon tanks is because these get put on, there's a hook on ATVs.
Yeah.
And that this is able to refill an ATV, because that's what they're using to get into these places, because it's so difficult. Right. And to pull bodies and everything else, because there's so much that needs to get done. And there's such a limited amount of time for that to get done. And so, how you deal with this politically is, one, you shouldn't be advertising politics whatsoever right now. A lot of them pulled their advertising off a wave. Some of them are putting them back. I think and I'll say this, I think the best politician response I've seen so far is one picture of Jay Collins working inside a kitchen, a mobile kitchen, down there, not knowing that someone's taking a picture of him.
Right.
That's the best one. And he's working, he's doing what he's doing because that's what he feeds veterans. Yeah. And he has the infrastructure to move those people to that disaster site to be able to do it. That has been the best picture so far. And even today when we were at the site, because we were able to again transport a bunch of water today, thank God we were able to get those resources and everything else, and we had some campaigns donate to facilitate those funds to be able to move it. At the end of the day, you could have had 34 pictures of faking it. And no, we had Karen Pittman, we had Scott Livingston. It wasn't smiles. It was, let's get this done. Let's get them on the truck, right, so we can get them south. That's the kind of pictures. And it wasn't like staged pictures. It was just them trying to get stuff in there and get out of the way to get things done. And they were very gracious about it. And that's something that you don't see that often.
Well, and to that note, I mean, again, those of us who've been here a while, we know people that know how to get those things done, whether it's to get it to parts of Florida. I mean, we, have our friend E.J. Otero, former retired Air Force colonel who has gotten stuff down to Puerto Rico before, when they went through Irma. And so it's just, again, I think that's where our country shines. Right. And unfortunately, we've reached a point in politics where they're going to criticize no matter what. But to me, what I liked was seeing the governor at the Waffle House.
Oh, that was awesome.
Man in the grill, right, for the first responders. You know, I
He was
mean,
cleaning the grease trap.
Oh my god,
that's
I don't wanna think
disgusting.
of it.
Wait a second. You said that's disgusting?
Waffle House.
Says the man who eats a taco bus.
First of all, it's the original, and second, it's 2:00 in the morning. There's a reason why I'm there.
I thought you were about to say Taco Bell, and I was like,
No. I have not walked into a Taco Bell ever. And so
I mean, I can't say I haven't. When I was in my 20s, we loved some Taco Bell after a good night at Ybor.
That's why it's Taco Bus for me.
I'll do Taco Bell over
was the
Taco
only
Bus.
thing that
any
was
day.
Taco
open.
Bus.
You know?
Taco Bus
Sorry.
is always better than Taco Bell.
When you're desperate and you're hungry and you need something to eat.
Well,
Hey,
when it comes
when the bars close at 3:00, there's only a few places to go,
That's
and
right.
everyone's at McDonald's, and so
Yeah.
there's nowhere else to go.
See, when it comes to Taco Bus, you know, I just always wait for the biannual like food hazard article that comes out where
Dirty
they've
diving.
been, where they've been, you know, issued a warning or they've
And
had
like
to
La
shut
Cucaracha
down.
is playing in the
Right,
background.
exactly.
Girl,
All right, thank you everybody for watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Elisabeth Flach joining us tonight with Anibal, David Cabrera. We're talking about, of course, Hurricane Ian and the fallout. Governor DeSantis, again, doing an amazing job as he continues to oversee all the efforts down there. What I think has also been exciting for me is to see, you know, even our own sheriff, Sheriff Chronister, has been down there. He's good friends with the Lee County Sheriff. Actually, our the deputy sheriff has also been with him down there, and I know that they sent, I think, about 36 or more sheriffs deputies down there to help with the efforts in terms of, you know, just logistics, and of course, you know, Democrats, as you might expect, are all up in arms over the governor's comments in regards to looting. Now, there haven't really been any reports up till now of any looting, but again, these are things that we know from experience that it's only a matter of time, you know, especially as time rolls on, because people are going to get desperate.
Yeah.
And as people get desperate, they resort to desperate measures. And it's unfortunate, but I think setting the precedent up front that, hey, let's all be safe. Let's all realize that, you know, anxiety is high and people have gone through a lot, because could you sit here and say, well, it's just stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But some people have worked their entire lives for that stuff. Some people, again, have maybe lived their entire lives in that home.
Right.
And nobody else should have the right to come and take that from you. By the way, I actually, before we kind of get back into tonight's conversation, I do want to mention that I want to give a shout out to David Houston and announce officially that Concerned Veterans for America are actually a new sponsor of the show. We'll be giving you more details on them and what they're doing. Again, the hurricane has kind of thrown everything off. We were supposed to them officially as the sponsor of the show and tonight's show. But again, the hurricane kind of threw that off. David Houston, who is the Concerned Veterans for America regional director here for Tampa Bay, is actually down there helping with the recovery efforts and making sure that our veterans are also being taken care of. And so shout out to those guys for, again, always stepping up. And we'll be giving you a lot more information, a lot more insight as to what Concerned Veterans for America does, not only in our communities, but also especially for our veterans. Getting back to the looting thing is that, again, yeah, fortunately, we live in a state where we can defend ourselves. And it's sad that we live in a time in the United States where you can't say that for every city or every state.
Right.
The fact that, you know, now you're being criticized because you want to defend yourself and you feel that your property should not be taken. We're continuing to hear from California and New York and other states that they're continuing to relax the rules on criminals and relax the prosecution on criminals. Where does that get you? I mean, I don't see how this creates any kind of a positive outcome societally for them. And yet these individuals who lead these areas are continuing to be lauded as, you know, the leaders of the Democratic Party. And it makes no sense to me as to how anyone that is intentionally putting you in danger could be running as someone who claims to have your best interest in mind.
I don't know. I think the Dems just lack boundaries and they don't like to follow rules. That's how I see it these days. I mean, I don't know. I really think we've gotten so far away from the Constitution. And to be honest, I think we've gotten so far away from God in this country.
Yeah.
That.
Well, that's really it. I mean, you're talking about where now even individuals who commit sexual crimes
Right.
are not being prosecuted, or not being held in prison, are being released with, sometimes even without bail. And what it truly is, honestly, is the fact that they've mismanaged their prison systems. They've incorporated a lot of terrible policies that have kept people in prison that shouldn't be in prison. And now they have nowhere to send those people.
Like, I can understand the argument of like victimless crimes should have lesser sentences and everything else, but like there was a whole report on Vice News, I believe it was, talking about like them trying to humanize like sexual assault offenders and like how they should be released earlier, and the people, and it's so funny because I didn't even watch the documentary. I watched someone talk about the documentary, and they're like, it's such a train wreck that at the end of one of the interviews of them talking to someone that was rehabilitated for sexual assault, they had to put a disclaimer and say it out loud, like, oh, by the way, after this interview, the gentleman sent our female producer a dick pic, like unrequested. Right. And then you're like, what on earth is going on? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it's not, sexual assault is not a victimless crime.
Sure.
I can understand some drug paraphernalia and things like that, but sexual assault is not a victimless crime. And how on earth do Democrats and liberals really how can they justify this kind of stuff, that their policies really do cause a lot of anguish and a lot of additional crime in lower income communities where the policing is requested, but yet they feel such, and I'm going to say this out loud, white guilt, I think it is, that they feel that it's their obligation to reduce the amount of policing in these communities because they feel a moral obligation that these minority communities have been victimized. And I can understand that argument, but you don't reduce policing because of that. You figure out other programs to be incentivize that the reformation of families, because that's the biggest problem. You've had a system that has reduced the family and have allowed those families to be splintered so much that really you should be pumping more money into programs that foster family growth and expansion, not degradation of those family values.
Well, they're literally going after the family unit. They're intentionally attacking the family unit.
Right. And they're going after mothers too. I've been saying this for a while. Moms are under attack. I mean, on social media, I'm very, very loud about all the things. And I'm no longer afraid to share. For a while, I was like, oh, I'm going to make people mad. People aren't going to be my friend. And then I thought, you know what? I don't even care because I want to protect my children. I have 4 kids. They're my legacy. And if I don't stand up and start fighting and saying what needs to be heard, whether it falls on deaf ears or not, I can't sleep at night knowing that I'm just sitting idly by letting things happen. And they're coming after the family unit. They're coming after moms. They're coming after our children. And, above anything else, it doesn't matter what political stance you take. If you're a mother, a father, and you have children, like, it's time to stand up and push back, right?
And it's frightening when you hear, especially, some of the what they call the culture war issues that we're having in schools. When you hear some of these teachers talk about their students as if they're your friends. These are not your friends. Like, my kids are not your friends.
No.
They don't need to know what goes on in your personal life.
Right.
I remember pretty much almost all the way through high school feeling like that teacher lives in that classroom. Like, I know nothing else about that individual, from the time I arrived at school, from the time I leave to school. And that's how it should be. They should know zero about your personal life.
I think
there's no place for it.
I think, there's boundaries. I'm a big fan of boundaries across the board. And when children and people don't have a healthy respect for authority, they cross that boundary.
Yeah.
There is no line any longer. There is no like, oh, I can't go there. It's like, let's go. And so the problem is, even this generation of kids, even my kids, they do because they know that we'll beat them, but
well, and the thing
people
is,
don't respect authority.
And what they
honestly, I thought my teachers were going to beat me because my father would purposely, like, during
you have permission.
Yes, he's like,
in my absence, you can beat them.
I was in elementary school, and my dad was like, so what piece of paper do I need to sign so that you can hit him if he goes out of line? I'm like, what did I do? And of course, he's he's not doing it on purpose
Yeah,
to
it's being
let them.
facetious, right.
But however, as a 8-year-old or 9-year-old, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be able.
Sure.
And then this goes further into the family dynamic at church. I had enough tias and tios that if I was talking out loud at church or I wasn't doing something right, someone can easily grab the
Well, you
back of
felt
my
everybody was watching you.
Because
Yeah.
that's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
It takes a village. Everyone should be watching. Well, where's Thea? What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here by yourself. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
I'm going to get slightly off topic, but it's not. And I don't know. I probably offend people, and they'll probably think I'm crazy, but I don't care. So I think that it all started really going awry when you could no longer spank your children, or you couldn't like spank them in public, like not beat them, but like catch them doing something and then tap them on the butt, or like my mom did not hesitate. Like we knew, and like she would be like, Elisabeth Renee, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna die right here in this aisle. Like this Publix terrazzo is never gonna be the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my mom would reprimand us right then and there and embarrass us to the point where we were like, oh, I never want to get yelled at in public ever again.
Yeah.
And it put the fear of God in you. And like, I have a strong, healthy respect for my mom. And she whooped us with the wooden spoon and the spatula. And like, we knew not to cross that line anymore. We knew not to push it. And I think,
you're not supposed to be your kid's friend until
No.
like they can pay bills. Like,
thank you.
that was something I
will
didn't
be your
realize.
friend when you pay your own bills, and I can spoil your
Like
grandchildren.
my dad and I have a great relationship with my. How do you know I'm not a comedian? I have a good relationship with my dad, and so like I have a great relationship with my parents, and that's because they did not treat me as an equal or as a friend.
Right.
No.
Until I started being able to pay bills, and
Right.
even now, my mom looks at me and I turn into a 13-year-old.
You know.
I know, and the woman's like 5. She's getting shorter every year, and my mom, like that woman can command an army at the Napoleon size.
Yeah.
And that's because this is generation. This is millennia of training when it comes to parenting. And you have these new age people that think 2 crystals in someone's bedroom is going to change their mood. And like that becomes a problem.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's not teaching. That's not raising your kids. And like how every pendulum swings one direction of how crazy people are when it comes to raising their kids, it'll swing back.
Well,
and
and-
I cannot wait for that swing back.
And what's frightening is that what used to be the fringe element, and they always screamed and yelled, no, that's the fringe element. That's not who we are. That's not who we're pushing for. Now that fringe element has become the mainstream. And so when we're talking about, seeing drag queens, at elementary schools and libraries and these, and I don't even want to get into like what kind of parents would take their kids to something like that. It goes to show you, because the next thing that's coming to kind of wrap up the tangent is pedophiles. And they're starting to make excuses, and they're starting to test the waters on making that an acceptable
Right.
lifestyle according to them. And they're going to continue pushing and pushing and pushing until it's the mainstream. And then if you don't accept it, you're a bigot. Because you don't accept that as being normalized or as being an acceptable way of life.
I mean, I anticipate patriots and for me, like being a God-fearing person, that this is going to become the norm for us. Like they're going to call us every name in the book,
Yeah.
right? They're going to persecute us. They're going to say what they're, and I'm like, call me whatever name you want. I'm
Right.
good.
Right.
Like Bible, Constitution.
Yeah, you own it.
I'm good.
Right. I'm good.
You have to
And
own
if
it.
it's outside that scope,
Yeah.
go ahead. But I will not, I'm not going to sit idly by, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of like the direction we're going. I'm praying Jesus comes soon, and I did my hair that day. I wake up some days and I'm like, Jesus, if today is the day, I need to know. I just want to look cute. When you call me up, I want to look pretty.
Let me shave ahead of time. That's all I ask.
All right.
Let me
look,
make sure I put lotion on. I'm not ashy.
I will say, I think what's going to start happening is that there's such a pushback right now. Like people, the whole phrase of like "go woke, go broke" is starting to really catch form because people are just tired of it.
Right.
They
Well,
go
there was
too
this-
far to the left, and then people just get really upset about it, and they want it over. Like whatever happened to the novelty of going to university for you to see their first transsexual? I mean, those were the good old days that you have to go to the castle to be
No.
able to find
The honey
ridiculous, or the honeypot, which they got rid of. of. Because
Tracks, remember Tracks?
I don't remember that.
Well, my mom went there one time for a bachelorette party.
But like what happened to the novelty of going to the castle and seeing ridiculousness and like realizing like that's some people's thing, and it is what it is. It's fine.
But again, that like there's a time and a place.
I don't need that in my elementary class.
Right.
I
Exactly.
don't need that in my and that's the problem, because they feel that everyone should get exposed at any given time because they were born that way. And I'm not going to get into the debate right now, but I find it super annoying and very controversial, the fact that we are allowing surgeries on children because the parents think that they should be a different gender.
All right,
it's
well,
not the kid talking about that, and that's society allowing that to happen.
Well, we got way off track.
I know, but you're mutilizing children.
Yeah.
And people get
and
upset.
this is a real problem. I mean, there's a major church, I believe, in Chicago, that is doing these surgeries and these treatments and that sort of thing, and that is going to become the next big issue. And it's frightening that we even have to consider that, the fact that we even have to have that conversation and think that there's enough people out there that think that that's okay, that think that that's acceptable, is beyond me. Like I can't even wrap my head around, because in one of the news stories that covered this particular hospital, I have a 6-year-old, and the little boy / girl that they profiled was a 6-year-old. They don't know what they want at 6 years old. They don't understand the world around them. And as much as you might think they do, because they say funny things and they're, and they're speaking in full sentences. Well, guess what? They don't know how the world works around them. Much less they don't know themselves. And to be making lifelong decisions for them at that age, again, I think is tantamount to child abuse.
It is child abuse. I will fully say it's child abuse. So what
Absolutely.
they're doing, and it goes on both sides of the aisle, from the extremes of wanting to have your son or daughter change and at a young age, to those parents that sent their kids to like what's it called when they didn't want their kids to be like gay or something like that.
Camp?
Not
like a boarding school?
Not a boarding school,
like
but
a military.
they was like what kind of it was like pray the gay away kind of situation. It was,
there were like some camps. There were,
Like a cultist,
conversion
like,
camps.
Conversion,
place?
like
Okay.
reconversion camps.
Conversion camps.
And those were the extremes when it came to the right. Like that shouldn't, like no one should be going through like electrics.
No, and that was equally as terrible.
Yes.
I mean, that
and I think that's where we're fighting on both sides. No one should be forcing their children on either side. You have to give them the education. You raise them, they're under your roof, and when they turn 18 and they're out of your house, I mean, they can make all the decisions you want. Don't get me wrong. Am I ever going to get a tattoo? No, because I want to get buried with my family. However, I could make that decision.
Well, you laid down the best foundation you can and hope for the best.
Yes.
I mean, that's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
But no one should be changing no one should be forcing like,
In surgery.
Right.
It's too much. It's too much. And I can't wait until the society realizes that that's child abuse.
Well, much like the hurricane, we went way off course. And
and we didn't plan for it.
and so to get us back on, I do want to go ahead and share that website we have ready. I think it was up a second ago, but it's volunteerflorida.org, I believe is the URL. And this is the state-sanctioned website. This is a state-owned website by which they are, again, trying to corral all of the, as you can see there, volunteer information, donations. You can donate through this website, and then you can also, of course, get information on what's happening on the ground there and where maybe they need help, where they need supplies. Pretty much, this is the hub that they want everybody to go to in terms of contributing in just about any way possible. As you can see there, whether it be national service, volunteer services, emergency management. I mean, they even have grant opportunities for nonprofits, again, that can provide certain types of services, because we forget, right? The initial is the material things, right? They need clothing, they need the water, food, other kinds of supplies.
Tarps.
But the one that I think is often forgotten about is also mental health services. Right. And the fact that there are organizations, there are therapy animals that, come into these situations. That's what they're trained for, and professionals that go to these kind of catastrophic situations to talk with these individuals, because it's going to take process. It's going to take
traumatic.
a lot of process to. I mean, a friend of I don't know if you knew Doug Izzo. Did you know Doug Izzo?
Maybe.
So my thumbs up, best wishes, prayers to my friend Doug Izzo, who actually used to run the Bay Area Beaches Chamber. So he used to run the chamber for all the Tampa Bay area beaches. He got, I guess, a promotion to, I think he's the CEO or something like that, for the chamber down in Southwest Florida. Excuse me. He was in his parents' house as the storm hit. I mean, he has pictures, videos, literally of the storm and all of the water and everything coming into his house, destroying his home. They literally witnessed, their entire home being destroyed in the moment. I mean, it's one thing to come to a home that's been destroyed, but it's another thing to live through that and the anxiety and the trauma of not knowing even if you're going to be able to survive it.
Right.
I mean, we're hearing about these aerial rescues and it's search and rescue, because there are people who unfortunately didn't make it out of their homes. Right now the numbers seem pretty low, and hopefully they'll stay that way. But in all likelihood, I think it's almost inevitable that we'll see a spike in the numbers in the coming days and weeks.
I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, and I actually had this conversation with the Bible study that I went to on Saturday about how Floridians might have their own internal triggers or traumas, just because we, on a good few years, we might not have to deal with this for a few years. There's cycle. It's a cycle. So sometimes, and again, a lot of Northerners don't understand this. There's El Nino. That's what triggers a lot of the storm's severity when it comes to this. And as a Floridian, you know this. So you try not to politicize or try to talk about climate change because of this, because we've been getting hit by hurricanes for hundreds of years, and we're going to keep on getting hit by hurricanes. And so, as a Floridian, you're kind of used to every few years, I'm going to have to be able to deal with either myself being by myself without any power, or me having to live with my in-laws for a few days or things like that. And you got to deal with it. The lights go out, the candles come on, and you grab a book and you read it.
Right.
What else are you going to do at that time? And that's what we kind of talked about that earlier. That's the anxiety of you rush, and then you just wait. And it's one of the benefits and one of the drawbacks of being in Florida, because we get to at least see our natural disaster 3 to 5 days in advance, and so we can prepare. Earthquakes, you can't do it. Tornadoes, fires, you can't. Anything happening in California, and so because of that, I mean, we have somewhat of a trigger, because you just gotta. It's almost like you gotta stay calm and go on. There's nothing else to do, because you gotta be strong for the community, and I think. And a lot of Floridians are also very used to staying home during hurricanes, because there's not the average of you getting hit by a big storm like this is high comparative, but no one ever expects it. So I think we're going to see a lot of those triggers and those traumas.
I mean, let's put ourselves in that situation. I mean, really, if you were living in that part of the state, what options did you have? To go north towards what was possibly the path of the storm, to go south towards the storm?
Yeah, you didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Or if you're lucky, maybe you go east, out to 27 or something.
But also,
but
we have a very long state. So to get out of the state of Florida is an extensive drive. And if everyone is creating this mass exodus, you're going to get stuck in traffic. And then there was no fuel. These are problematic issues that happen every time there's a major storm that comes this way. And so you're like, all right, I could chance it. And good luck trying to fly out. First of all, you couldn't get anywhere.
No.
Under $1,300. We tried. We're going to Vegas. And I was like, no, we're not.
Honestly, within I think 24 hours, everything in TIA was already booked. It was almost impossible to get out of the city at that time.
And then they shut the airport down.
And that's really the only true type of evacuation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's to back out.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you leave, and you're not sure where it's going to hit, so you're not sure when you're coming back.
Yeah.
And then, say it hits Tampa and your house is devastated and you're, in Kansas.
Yeah.
And now you're stressing because you're like, is my house, is it open? Are people looting? I mean, you just don't know. So I don't think people really fully understand the magnitude. We're cool about it. We not blow it off, but it's how we process, if you will. I was trying to explain to my company because they're all in New York, and I'm like, they're like, are you okay? And I was like, I need until Sunday. You rush around and you're preparing and you're trying to find water. There's never any water,
Yeah.
We need water anyway, but then it's, what do you really prepare for?
You prepare in June when they have the hurricane tax season time. That's when you know
Yeah,
you're
where are you gonna
flirting.
put all that stuff?
In your shed that you should have.
Yeah.
You gonna keep that water in the shed? It's gonna get hot and build bacteria.
We have it in the house, the water. But
Okay,
other
okay.
stuff. But no,
Well, I feel like we kind of
were prepared
prepare.
in June.
Okay, I can say I don't like fully prepare. I have some stuff, but I'm like, whatever. And then I went, oh, what if it actually does hit? Maybe I should get some
The
stuff.
amount of candles that
I have candles anyway.
realized.
I'm a
There's
candle
whole
freak.
bucket of it at the house. Okay, we're boring someone.
All right.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry,
No.
Miss Producer.
Oh my gosh. You just gave us the stink eye.
Super bored. It's fine.
All right, so volunteerflorida.org
We're
is the
here for you.
website. Again, if you want to donate, volunteer, or simply need information on what's happening down in that area. The other cool thing is that there's a website out there that is compiling all of, because people have drones. I have a drone. It's a very kind of common thing now for people to have drones.
Do you have a
It's
drone?
not a common
I don't have a
thing.
drone.
I'm sorry. Do you have a Tesla? I don't have a Tesla.
No.
Tesla's not a common thing.
No,
It's
I
not
mean,
a
a drone
thing.
is like but it's like for
A drone is like what?
it's like having a video game system. There's a lot of people with drones. Now, is it a mainstream thing? It's
I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of disposable income.
Thank you.
You can get it for like $300 at
I have kids.
Costco.
$300.
I have 4 children.
Oh my god, that's a bill. I don't know which one, but it's
I'm
a bill.
surprised one of your kids doesn't have a drone.
Well, I think at one point we did, but then like somebody almost lost a finger, and I was like, we're getting rid of this damn thing.
You have children. You shouldn't be flying things around like that.
Well, I use it professionally. And it is fun
Fly
to
nowhere
and it
else.
is fun to fly around. But what this website is doing is basically
illegal for you to be flying around a drone in Hillsborough County.
No.
without the proper FF whatever.
no, only
department?
if you are within, I think, 5 miles
I'm
of an
almost
airport.
positive you are within 5 miles of an international airport.
Well, I am,
Torres.
but not all the time. I don't, I don't fly it at my house.
It's never been flown in the condo.
No, it has, but I mean, I'm flying it at maybe like 10 feet. I'm not flying it at 200 feet.
So it has been flown within 5 miles of the airport.
I'm really glad I'm sitting between the two of you right now.
Oh, girl, if you were not here.
No, look, the big mistake was flying it out at, oh gosh, what's that park called?
For DeSoto?
Lopez?
Nope, it's a little park right outside of McDill.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like a
There's-
beach. There's like a beach.
No,
front-
no. There's baseball fields and stuff. And,
Oh.
so the little no, that's anyways. So there's a park there with baseball fields and stuff right outside of McDill, and I was shooting video for the little league team that plays there, and so I wanted to get like a cool drone shot of the field and this and that, and did my thing, shot the footage I needed, and within 10 minutes of me, fortunately had already put it away. Tampa police shows up and they're like, was somebody out here flying a drone?
So you lied to the authorities.
No, I didn't.
Oh, so
I ended up to it, but they said, hey, can't do that. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I was already done. It's not like I was in the process of flying it.
I was hoping it was more of a story.
Plus, I didn't cross into...
Let down.
He keeps on talking. I don't know when we're going we can do the show.
Anyways, so
Wait,
talking
are
about
we going to talk about
politicizing...
my favorite person?
Yeah.
Who
I
could
think
that
so.
be?
Let's go ahead and reset the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign. Got Elisabeth Flach joining us and Anibal David Cabrera. And again, you can catch the audio version of this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want to see our beautiful faces, you can do so on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, follow. And if you're on YouTube, ring the bell. We're going to get into tonight's final topic, which is Democrats getting racist, and Florida is at the brunt of it. As we kind of started off last week, not last week. No, it wasn't even last week. It was again. It felt like weeks ago. It was literally right after the hurricane. Vice President Kamala Harris comes out and says that any type of hurricane aid should be given
Equity based.
Equity based.
should be distributed on an equity based.
I don't know what that means.
Equity based system. They're basically saying that I guess you stand in a line, and based on how dark you are, that's what position you get.
Or
in
a
the line.
woman.
It's so ridiculous. Especially again when in a time of need, everybody's in need, and and the fact that you would go out there and not just simply politicize it, but then throw like this whole racial component in there, to gaslight the whole
Well,
thing.
Jonathan, I don't know if you know, but hurricanes are distinctly racist and ageist. So they only go after old white people in their trailer parks. Oh wait, no, those are tornadoes in Kansas. Never mind.
Yes.
The tornadoes are racist. The hurricanes are not. They are fully
Hurricanes only hit brown people.
no, first
The Caribbean,
They always
and
hit
then-
brown people first,
Right.
and then they go into
Right.
the white people area.
And that's how you should distribute the hurricane aid.
yeah,
Right.
we should send it overseas.
Brown people first, and
and then it should come to Florida.
So just another one of the ridiculous comments that Kamala Harris has made. Of course, people are saying that if Joe Biden doesn't run, she would obviously be putting her name up for,
God help us.
for president.
No, I want her on the ballots.
Yes.
Because the California couldn't do it because she dropped out before the presidential nominations in California. And I want her to realize how much people do not like her.
I'm almost torn as to who I would rather see go up against DeSantis, whether I would rather see Kamala or Gavin Newsom go up against DeSantis.
Ooh, Gavin Newsom.
See, but Gavin Newsom he's a pretty boy, right? He's a
Yeah.
showman. He's Hollywood. He's you know what I
He's
mean?
like the Lex Luthor
He's-
of politics.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of substance there.
Good.
There's not a lot of substance there. He'll go whichever way the wind blows. Whereas Kamala, even though, again, some might argue that, the lights aren't always on, she's also a former attorney general. She.
How?
Well,
Oh, wait, we're not going there. There is a story and it gets racy.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I said.
So a lot of favors involved.
Something to do with people's needs. And so with that being said,
dirty. Sounds dirty.
continue this conversation.
And so I don't know who I would take more joy out of watching him mop the floor with. Because DeSantis is just going to mop the floor. Again,
I would love to see him mop the floor with Kamala.
people continually.
Kamala. How do you say her name?
Kamala?
No,
No,
it's
Kamala.
Yeah,
I've heard it multiple ways, so I don't really know.
I'm pretty sure it's Kamala.
I'm going
Okay.
to say Kamala.
Okay.
Yes, it's Kamala. And
I would just really love to continue to expose her idiocy. Like, that's for
But that's
me
the thing.
where
She
I'm
just
at.
does
Like,
it so freely, so willingly.
I know, but I think there's still people that don't seem to get it. And I'm like, let's just make it so blatant at this
I love
point.
the log cabin boys would love to see Pete Buttigieg attempt a run against the governor.
Oh yeah.
They would love to see it just because the jokes that they have are phenomenal, which I cannot repeat on air.
Right.
But they are hilarious. Getting a bunch of gay Republicans together talking about Pete Buttigieg, it's phenomenal, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
So you have,
You're going to have to send me that channel later.
Oh, you have
Fantastic.
no idea.
and then what's hysterical
Something
is
has to do
that
with trains.
that Kamala's about to go overseas somewhere to pretend that she's doing something.
Isn't she in charge of the border?
Yeah. Meanwhile, again, she's supposedly, allegedly in charge of our southern border, where again hundreds of thousands of people continue to come in through.
But it's okay because the Speaker of the House says that we need them to pick crops. So that's perfectly
Right, exactly. Leading to the second most racist comment of this hurricane, which I don't even know how it got brought up, but Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi saying in a speech, in a news briefing, in a press briefing, that Florida should want illegal aliens to stay in the state of Florida to pick our crops. And honestly, I called out Peter Schorsch the other day of Florida Politics on Twitter because, he also made a similar comment, basically saying that the only people that, it's like, at a time when when restaurants and farms and, and all these service, it's like people are in such need of labor, why are we trying to get rid of illegal immigrants? And again, what they fail to know, and we know because we're, in the community, and it's like some of these people have better resumes than they do.
I'll say this once, and I'll say it only once. I met.
I mean, this isn't like Cuba where you have like these fake doctors and fake nurses, and you know. I
have a friend of mine
because
that's
of some socialist.
I have a friend of mine that's from Venezuela. He came here about 6 years ago. He's a lawyer in Venezuela,
right?
A lawyer, and because of the translation and speaking and everything else, he cannot be a lawyer here. So he had to find other employment and everything. And he's doing good here. He's allowed to live his life, literally allowed to live his life and the lifestyle he wants to here. He could not do that there, but the man is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. His Spanish is phenomenal because he was a lawyer, but he can't do that here. It's just, it's very difficult. And it upsets me that people think that just because you're an immigrant, the only thing you can do is pick fruit and
be a laborer.
Clean hotels and work in restaurants.
It's so frustrating and so annoying that people think that, because I know a lot of people that move to this country have to do those jobs for a few years until they get good at their English, and then they get to do what they did when they were before.
I mean, they're attorneys, doctors.
Like that's what they did, because they knew eventually things were getting bad and they had to get out.
Yeah, but because of the process, the bureaucracy that it takes to get certified here in the United States, again, they have to learn the language first. Fine, I have no problem with that. But again, to somehow assume that all of these people, deserve to be out there doing migrant work, in farms and fields, or deserve to be in the back house of a kitchen at some restaurant, or deserve to be in the housekeeping department at some hotel. Again, incredibly offensive.
Yeah, extremely offensive.
It's very degrading.
And you hear that from Democrats. You hear from Democrats all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the reason why
Hillary Clinton said it.
Latinos are one of the biggest groups of people that are moving to the Republican Party, because at least in the Republican Party, you have the whole conversation of like, get connected in your community, better yourself, better your family, grow your family, because
start that business.
Because again, a lot of these people know they're not going back. They have to start something here to live here, to survive here. Yeah. And those are the best people that are living the American dream. Those that come to this country, work hard, become citizens, become proper citizens of society, paying their bills and everything else. Not just, and the whole factor that the catch and release situation is so detrimental to society, because you don't know where these people are. They're being taken advantage of because of people wanting to pay them low wages and no wages sometimes at all. Mm-hmm. And they're also having to give money back to the coyotes that brought them over. We have such a ridiculous, and it's almost like no one wants to fix it. They want to keep the problem at the border because that keeps us distracted and arguing with each other. Like it's the division. Yeah. I'm almost to the point that I just think that both sides just don't care, because it gets so frustrating that you have people like Marco Rubio that try to do immigration reform and gets shot at on all sides.
People still
hold him accountable for that.
Like still, like burn him at the stake for it.
Right.
Yes.
And when again, as a party, as conservatives, we should want to reform immigration. We should want to fix the system, so that we have a system to protect, so that we have a country to protect.
Correct.
And the problem is that the system, much like our tax code, is such a mess that it's part of the reason why we can't get a handle on it.
Well, the same reason why immigration is a mess is the same reason why tax system is a mess, is because in the mess, people can take advantage.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And don't get me wrong. I was at 75% of the tax code was written for you to dodge taxes. Like it's meant to be so difficult, and that you have to hire people, you have to be able to do all that stuff. Immigration reform is so stupid. Like even the normal stuff that we have right now, we are allowing people to come on student visas to get educated here, and then they have to leave as soon as their education is done. Really? We just spent like 4 to 6 years educating this person, and now they have to leave immediately?
Right.
Like how? That doesn't make any sense.
No. And it's an antiquated approach. And we'll have to change. Because what's happening in this country is also what's happening around the world. There's going to be a competition for bodies. There's going to be a competition for population growth. Canada is already doing it. Canada is offering free secondary education, college, technical, whatever you want, in exchange for citizenship. You come there, you graduate, guess what? You become a citizen. Why? Because their population numbers are dropping significantly, as all of ours are. And it's something that, again, we're fortunate to be a country where people want to come and are literally risking their lives to come to. But if that weren't the case, we'd be in a really, really difficult situation, especially down the road, as, again, people are having fewer and fewer children.
Hey, Hispanics are not. Hispanics are one of the few
Right.
populations that continue to grow.
That's
And
why I tell
expand.
people Tampa's going to
And
look
it-
more like Miami in 15 years
Ugh,
than.
don't say things like that, please.
No, it
For
is.
the love of God, don't
It
let
is.
this happen.
I mean, you talk
Please
about.
stop. Please.
I can't handle that
cannot,
level
I
of
can't.
pretension. I'm sorry.
I can't. It's because
Well, no,
he's from
I don't
Miami.
mean-
That's the reason why he wants us to go back to that Miami Vice world. I cannot deal with
can't
it.
do it.
Between the people over in Miami that want to make this into Miami and the Northerners that want to make this into New York, I cannot handle this anymore. I get it. We have to develop. We have to build more buildings. I get it. Live in downtowns. Pay $4,000 for a 1-1, and that's it. Let me live in Seminole Heights. You live in Lutz. I can't. I'm
I
getting
love
triggered.
you so
I'm
much.
getting
I feel
triggered.
the same way.
I can't.
I've been so.
I can't.
I'm so triggered lately with all the migration to Tampa.
Yeah.
I'm like, go back where you came from. The traffic is annoying. Like,
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry.
can't.
It's triggering
I can't.
all
I
of my
can't.
comfort zone.
And then you get to meet these people and you become friends with these people. Jonathan, we'll talk later. And then you're like, and then now when a hurricane's coming, like, what am I supposed to do with a hurricane? Like, why are you talking to me? Well, you're a Floridian. So are you now? He's like, I don't know. This is the first time I've gone through this.
You should go home.
Go home. Yeah, get on the flight. And that's what
Have to leave. Go.
A bunch of them
Run.
just flew back north, and I was like, oh, that's great. And what's a hurricane part? I'm like, we'll get to that point when the power goes out, and then we'll have that conversation.
Yeah.
Then.
First of all, we need water, snacks, and vodka.
We need to talk more.
Absolutely.
But no, I can't. I moved to Tampa to get away from what Miami is and has become.
Well, then you shouldn't want it to become Miami.
I
in
don't
5
want
years.
No.
it. It's inevitable.
It's not inevitable.
It's inevitable.
It's not inevitable.
because you're talking about.
There's not enough cocaine flowing through Tampa for it to become Miami. I'm sorry.
I don't mean in that
There's not
sense.
enough clubs,
I mean-
strippers.
There's enough strippers.
No, I don't know. I think they have more.
No. Oh, did you hear that we have a gay strip club now?
Shut your face.
No. We need to talk more.
Oh God.
We're gonna start a text.
Why are
Okay,
we?
it's fine to say.
Why do we have to talk about this?
We're not. We're
Well,
gonna save
no,
it for
it's fine,
later.
It's fine. It's fine.
We just had a moment. Sorry. Sidebar.
I don't mean in that sense. I mean in the sense that the Hispanic population basically is continuing to multiply in the region. People are leaving South Florida in droves because it's too expensive to live down there. There's no opportunity down there, so they're moving to places like Orlando and Tampa. And again, we already see it in the signs and billboards. You see things in Spanish. You see a lot more things happening in a bilingual fashion. Where again, I think, much like Miami, we already have some of that, obviously, in like West Tampa, in Town and Country.
We've always had that in
I
Town and
understand
Country.
that, but that's going
We've
to
always
expand.
had that in West Tampa. And
That's
what's
going to
happening
continue
now
to
is
grow.
those areas are actually getting gentrified so quickly.
Riverview is becoming very Hispanic.
And that's perfectly fine for Riverview. But when it comes to the Tampa proper and what we're doing here, I find it that Hispanics in Hillsborough County are much more faster to assimilate into society and also marry outside of their
and that
own
might
race.
be fine. I'm
And
not
that's
talking
happening more
about. I'm not
here.
talking about the assimilation aspect of it. I'm simply talking about the
No.
population.
Do you really think Miami?
I'm not talking about the lifestyle.
Do you think
I'm talking about
Miami
the population.
assimilates the same way as they do in Tampa?
No.
No, not at all. Until we go to a McDonald's at 4:00 in the morning and they only speak Spanish, then we'll get there.
We'll go to the McDonald's on Waters. What do you think's
that's
happening
only-
there?
I've been to the McDonald's at Walmart.
Right.
Waters. I grew up in that area. My church is from there. It's always been a Hispanic community. But I'm not in the middle of Ocean Drive and everyone's only talking
But I'm
Spanish.
telling you, that's what's growing.
Now that he lives in Town and Country, now that he lives, that's all.
No,
I've
look,
been there
go
my entire life.
travel between Bloomingdale and 301 and Big Bend Road and 301. And there are more than a handful of Colombian coffee shops and bakeries. There are
I will
already a
say-
handful of Colombian and Latin restaurants.
I will say this: society ends after Alamo. So, because I don't go past 60th if I don't have to. Again, it's
Well,
yes,
but
do
it's part of the county.
I
It's-
do
it's
believe
the
other
community.
parts of the community of Hillsborough County are becoming a lot more Latin dense, and that's perfectly fine. But that's because the normal Latin communities that were in Tampa have started to gentrify so much.
Yeah, but that's where it
percentage
starts.
is starting to flux out. Into
But then
the
what
community.
happens is that community becomes successful and they start to move inward. And so what is Coral Gables, what is Coconut Grove, what is downtown Miami, again, those were all the wealthy lawyers, attorneys, doctors that did not speak English, to put it lightly. And guess what? They're all gone.
Yeah, they sent their children here first, and now they've moved up.
And even the ones that have stayed have had to learn Spanish. to remain competitive in their respective fields.
I don't see Tampa going in that direction. I think Tampa is in a very good place right now when it comes to the influx of the Northerners, influx of individuals and new. A lot of people that move to the country, honestly, usually stop come from into Miami and come to go to Orlando. Orlando has a lot bigger Hispanic population
absolutely.
than we do, and I think we have in Tampa area. I think it's a good diversity.
But you're seeing it already because again, Orlando is ahead of where we are in terms of, again, the population growth of Hispanic. And they're already, it's not that I want to. This is what's happening. It's inevitable.
It's not happening. I rebuke all of this negativity coming
Where's
out.
my water? Where's my holy water?
I mean, you're seeing the Hispanic community take elected offices in Kissimmee, and eventually Kissimmee becomes Orange County. And again, it's the natural progression of things.
Are you done?
Florida will eventually become part of South America.
And we're done. Done. Yes, Miami is the capital of Central America. Financially, everything else, but we are done. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Oh
I've never
Triggers. We're being triggered.
All right.
I just cannot. There's some days I can't deal with him at all.
Thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign. Most relevant podcast in politics. Special thanks to Elisabeth Flach for joining us tonight. You can find her at Mother Flocker on all social media platforms. Also, thanks to Anibal David Cabrera. And thanks to everybody watching and listening to the show. Again, please remember to like, subscribe, follow, and ring the bell if you're watching us on YouTube. Yeah. And thank you again to Concerned Veterans for America for coming on as a new sponsor. Again, more details on that next week as we had to push everything back thanks to Ian. But again, if you'd like to get involved with not only providing some volunteer hours, but also maybe some services, some supplies, however you want to contribute in your way to the hurricane devastation that's happened, not only in Southwest Florida, but across the state, really. Orlando has had a lot of damage as well. Make sure you visit volunteerflorida.org. That's volunteerflorida.org. And I do want to give a little preview of what's coming down the pike, because we'll probably talk about it next week. Biden's oil reserves that he pulled from to manufacture the lowering of the gas prices have run out. Florida will be a little bit behind the trend because we have our gas tax just starting, thanks to Governor DeSantis. But already on the West Coast, gas prices are starting to spike again. We'll see a national increase in gas prices begin starting this week.
What? Right before the election? What? Who would have expected that to happen?
Well, again, the Biden's timing couldn't have been worse because it's literally going to, between that, the inflation, interest rates, all that stuff, it's gonna kill them in the midterms.
Good.
That's what happens when he doesn't get his nap in the middle of the day. So.
All right. On behalf of Anibal, Elisabeth, and yours truly, Jonny Torres, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week. Same time, same bat channel. This has been The Yard Sign. Good night, everybody. Good night.
It went off. Oh, wow.